Tony Jacklin's mark in golf extends far beyond the imprint of his Open and U.S. Open championship titles. He's the fiery Ryder Cupper who helped spark the sedate scene into a sizzling, international dramatic sensation. Meet Tony Jacklin, now on Golf Talk Live. Is an encore presentation of Golf Talk Live. Like a great round of golf, the 20th century has been bookended with critical contributions of greatness, and we look to England for one such example. In 1899, Englishman Harry Vardon won the Open Championship, and in 1900 won the U.S. Open, a dreamy golf prospect so rare that only one other Englishman, Tony Jacklin in 1969 and 70, has tasted the same sweetness of achievement. 20th century golf has been generally dominated by American players, starting in 1913 and continuing until an international presence of great players transformed golf into a world game in 1980. Harry Vardon's accomplishments included his combined 7 Open and U.S. Open championships, a total equaled by Jones and Nicklaus. He popularized the grip we use today and influenced generations of curious spectators to play rather than watch. Tony Jacklin became an inspiration for accomplishment as a player when he played successfully against Jack and Arnie and Billy and Gary and Lee, when all were at their very best. As a Ryder Cup player, he was vocal and gutsy and rowdy, and with a deft touch stirred the mix of confidence and work ethic required to compete against America's lineup of consistent greatness. Tony Jacklin's biggest contribution has been as a leader, as a captain, a fiery, inspirational, in-your-face leader, just the type needed by the Ryder Cup matches if they were going to be more than a footnote to the golf season. Jacko turned it around. He had Seve and Nick and Bernhard and Ian and Sandy, and he made them believe even deeper in themselves and in the value of team victories. And their individual careers blossomed when their Ryder Cup performances evidenced the underlying brilliance of their scoring abilities, toughness, and adaptability. Tony Jacklin. He's given us all-time individual performances, made the Ryder Cup a coveted treasure again, and inspired young, starry-eyed players that they too could discover greatness in themselves and in their opportunities. Welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm Peter Kessler. Great pleasure to be joined tonight by major champion Tony Jacklin. Great to see you here.
Peter.
You know, Arnold Palmer has always said if they ask for your autograph, make it legible. Is that why, I understand, as a kid you were practicing your autograph for the day that you would first be asked to sign it?
I used to do that, yeah. When I was, I got to about 13 or 14, I suppose, and I used to practice it. And how can I make it look, you know, legible and snazzy?
Did you get it right?
I think so.
Now, I understand you've given up competitive golf again.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, I wasn't enjoying it. That was the underlying reason, and that was the reason I stopped the first time when I was 40, and I had a long rest, a long layoff from the game between 40 and 50, and obviously doing Ryder Cups and things kept me occupied. But to the point where I felt, well, you know, I was ready maybe to play some senior golf, and I came on to live in America, which was a marvelous thing that I did, and became competitive on the senior tour. Started to practice again and get myself into shape, physical and mental, and enjoyed it for a while. And then I found that, you know, to maintain out there your exempt status, if you're not exempt from your past career, you know, you really have to commit yourself to playing 30, 35 tournaments a year, which is what I did the first 2 years. I managed to win the fourth time up, and I won again a year after, which kept me out there. But the grind, the week in, week out grind, and it gradually ground me down. I mean, I got to the point where, you know, I started thinking there's got to be better ways to live than do this, and I started to get anxious again, as I did the first time, you know, hyper about it, and really probably just getting it out of perspective. I couldn't go out there and enjoy it. I couldn't just go out there and, well, here we go, see what happens, you know, like Hale seems to do. And I didn't really putt. I've never felt, I've had my moments in my early life, but I never felt that I was a good enough putter. I think 30 years ago, probably I got away with it because the greens weren't so perfect. But now we all talk about equipment changes, and now the greens, the equipment that cuts the grass is so good that the greens are relatively perfect every week, and some of these characters are on the table, I tell you. And I've never really been, I didn't ever feel anyway that good. I mean, at the US Open where I won, I putted fantastic for a week, and but the bottom line was I wasn't having fun. And there was other things I wanted to do, and I certainly couldn't do the other things because it's a time-consuming business playing tournament golf. You're away from home a lot, and you know, it's impossible to stay in touch if you want a hands-on situation with any other business. And so I had 5 years at it. I'm 55. I didn't think I was going to get any better. I thought, you know, probably I'd seen the best, you know, when I went out there at 50, I was keen, I had ambitions. I didn't have the ambition to, didn't want to win all the senior majors or anything like that, but I wanted to prove that I could win again. I managed to do that, and from that point of view, you know, I thought, well, you know, let's just take a long look at things, and I wanted to do some design, and I got involved in a new golf center project, which is terribly exciting, and it all takes time and energy, and but there's a lot of fulfillment there, you know, when you can get these things, get the jobs and do them right. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm far more content. I'm far happier with myself. My wife tells me I'm a bit nicer as well than. And there's a lot of satisfaction in what I'm doing now, and there was not a lot of satisfaction the last 2 years I was out there playing senior golf.
You motivated a team of players in '83, in '85, and '87 by your presence, by your captaincy, into thinking that they could win as a team, and some of them that they could become the best players in the world, like Nick Faldo and Ian Woosnam and Sandy Lyle. You motivated them as a team, you inspired them as individuals. You have motivated thousands of young people on the other side, on your original side of the Atlantic, to take up golf. You think you've done a better job at motivating others than you've done at motivating you?
Wow, that's a good question. Probably. You know, I'm going to be involved a lot with the junior programs from now on at our new golf center at the academy there. And I've always been involved with junior golf back in the UK for the last 20 years. And so it does interest me. And I keep an eye on a lot of the kids that were doing well, and the ones I thought that were good players. Vari Mackay, for example, a couple of years ago, I saw how well she played in the Women's Open. And then she was one of my girls, you know, out there in the UK at Turnberry. And I told her mum and dad to send her over here and to get her educated. This is the place to be. And then she did it. And to see what she's done gives me enormous pleasure. So she just won, you know, but there's dozens of them. And with the Ryder Cup, the challenge of getting 12 guys together to feel and think the same, you know, and yeah, I think probably that motivated me more than my own. I knew inside what the limits, that my own ability had certain limitations because of, you know, my lack of ability to in what I thought anyway, to make putts. You know, I mean, that's what it's about at the end of the day. If you can't putt, you can't win. And, you know, I had my share, and I'm not complaining, you know, that there was the moments, but when you're doing it week in, week out, you need more than moments, you know. I do, for my standards are quite high, you know, and it tees me off when I don't, when I don't come up to the standards I expect. So, yeah, I feel, you know, with other people, youngsters especially, I feel that I'm able to understand what's going on through their personalities. You know, a lot about what happened in the Ryder Cup was about just studying people and understanding what made them tick in their own, you know. Wasn't so much the golf. I mean, golf obviously came into it a lot, but it was hooking into areas in their personality that made them feel better. If it was a langer, I mean, you tend to think there were things and situations in those Ryder Cups over those 4 years I did it that the great players, you know, you think don't need it, but they all need it. Everybody needs a boost.
When we come back, let's pick it up right there. And as we leave, we're going to tell everybody the real reason that you've given up competitive golf, which is, of course, your new career as a singer again. And as we go to break, he not only can swing a club, he can sing a song. We've only got 8 seconds, so watch and listen carefully. We'll be right back.
If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come fly with me, let's fly away.
What do you suppose that winning the '85 Ryder Cup, that European team winning the '85 Ryder Cup, did to make golf once again an international game as opposed to one that was just dominated largely by Americans for really about 70 years to that point?
Well, I mean, I think it shocked probably America. You know, at that time, as you say, the Americans were very dominant, and you know, they were very, I wouldn't say arrogant, but confident about the fact that they were where they ought to be. And the fact that we went ever so close in '83, and that was probably the most disappointing week certainly of my 4 captaincies, because we just lost by a point that week, and we were, for everything that last afternoon, it looked like we could win it. But we took that and ran with it, you know, as a team, and thought, well, if we did that well in '83, you know, I mean, if we take this with us, this experience at home with the home crowd and everything, maybe we can bring the trophy back. But it was 28 years. It's a long time, and it's fine to think that, but, you know, the doing of it is always a much more difficult thing. And I think the fact that we took what we gained in '83, brought it to '85, and did the business. I think it shocked the world, the American golf scene, you know, certainly, and it got the attention of the world scene. And from that point forward, again, we took that as you know, the first win in America in '87 was the most unbelievable week as far as I was concerned. But that really just was icing on the cake. It really confirmed it, and then it took golf to that international level again. Everybody, you know, around started saying, well, you know, it doesn't start and end in America. These guys from overseas can play, and of course subsequently the President's Cups, you know, confirmed that again. So I think it's been marvelous for golf. I think it's been great for the game. It's been great for the people who love the game. A lot of them in America too. A lot of them inside of America too have enjoyed it. You know, the Ryder Cup has become an incredible spectacle now, and you know, I think as time's progressed, you know, from my own point of view, it's not about them and us anymore. And it certainly started out that way. You know, I have a different view on it now. I just want the thing to be close. I just want the matches every year. I pray that they're close. I pray that the players all come out of it with their integrity intact, and you know, that the thing happens without anything untoward happening, other than some great golf to be seen, and you know, some fair galleries and players who are playing for the right reasons, that can look the other guy in the eye when it finished, like Jack and I did way back in '69, and shake hands and say, well played, win, lose or draw. You know, I think that's what it's all about, and that's the spirit of which the matches are played, I think, filters through everybody that sees it. And so those players that are out there in the arena are really responsible for a great deal. And so I care about that, and I worry about that a little more now than I used to 15 years ago.
Some people who take a look at the Ryder Cup say the role of the captain is largely overrated. But we take a look at Seve's influence in '97 and we realize that isn't at all so. And we take a look at what you did in the decade of the '80s when you took an event where being the captain previously had been a thankless job to get thumped by the Americans. You turned it around. So as we head into the matches this year, what are your thoughts about Mark James's qualities as a leader to be the Ryder Cup captain?
Well, they're unknown. So I'm going to be sitting back and watching just like everybody else is to see whether he's got anything up his sleeve that I don't know about. I do know he's got, 7 rookies on the team or whatever, and that's a bit difficult, I think. You know, I mean, his choice was, one of his choices, he chose a rookie. You know, I might have gone for Langer, I think, you know, to put some experience in the side. If I'd have been him, I may have gone for myself, you know, but it's going to be interesting. I don't know. He's an unknown quantity. I've said in print that Mark is a heck of a match player. He's difficult to beat. He's got an odd personality and he's got a funny swing, but he gets the job done. And he's very, very determined. And you know, for me as a captain, and Mark played on one of my teams, he was a great asset on the team as a player. Now, what his qualities are as a captain, you know, wait to be seen. I wait as you wait. You know, beyond his ability to play as he did for me and as a captain, I don't know him that well. I didn't ever spend a lot of time off the golf course with him.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll pick up one of the 15 subjects that you can opine upon at great length. And as we leave you for just a moment, let's take a look at one of the great putts you made of many in 1970 in winning the U.S. Open by a mere 7 shots. Tony Jacklin, he still has those pants. We'll be right back. Now that screaming putt that we saw on the 9th hole of the final round that looked like it was going to keep going, that's the one that won you the tournament, you told me, as we went to break.
Well, that's right. I was jittery. I just missed 2 4-footers on the previous 2 greens, 1 to 3 putt, and I think one, maybe both 3 putts. And I hit that putt far too hard. That was on the 9th green, and it hit the back and jumped up and went in. If it had gone past, I would have been left with another one the same length of the 2 I just missed, and But when that went in, whew, the nerves all left me, and I cruised home. It was a wonderful feeling, I must say.
Let's take a look at it again. You weren't sure of the look on your faces. We're sitting here that it was going to go in this time.
Well, it was too hard, wasn't it? But I mean, he hit the dead center and decided to go down. I think when we talk about having a bit of luck, we talk about the right thing happening at the right time. That was sure the right thing happening at the right time for me there.
You had your first win in this country, Greater Jacksonville Open in 1968. You were a kid. You win the Open Championship at home in '69. You win the U.S. Open in '70. What were you dreaming about after that U.S. Open win in terms of dreams of greatness going forward? What do you think you were going to add to this?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the problem was that there was no game plan after that. I mean, that was the biggest problem. There was, you know, I'd achieved all this at 25. I mean, and it's impossible to tell you what my background was as a kid. You know, it's where I came from, and you know, the facilities that were available to me as a youngster. I mean, to come from that kind of background and to manage to win those 2 events so early, it put me in a position where, and of course living in Britain, which was, you know, the media was on me like and I just was trying to be all things to all people for the next 2 or 3 years, and really just running around with a chicken with no head on, trying to do everything and be everything. And I think the focus from the actual golf went, I mean, I should have come and lived over here then, of course. Now it's easy to see with hindsight. But I thought I was being patriotic, staying in Britain, trying to play the British tour. There was no European tour at the time. And John Jacobs came on board, the old John Jacobs, the teacher, John Jacobs, and he was the sort of commissioner over there for a few years, and he kept sort of egging me back to come on, and if you come back, you know, we'll get a Swedish Open, and if you come back, we'll get a German Open. And so I was back and forth, spreading myself too thin, and you know, it all sort of, the edge went, and of course it didn't take me very long running around like that to get tired of it, and I wouldn't enjoy it anymore.
There was, in those days, a little bit of a we and them attitude by some of the players on the American tour, the them being anybody who wasn't from this country. Do you think it made it harder to see the clear road to coming to the United States when you realized that not everybody on this tour was particularly supportive of the fact that you had won both Opens at the age of 25?
Yeah, it was a bit difficult. You know, there was a lot of the old guard out there still, and we all know who they are, and we're not going to go into that. But, you know, they were tough guys. They were tough men. They had it tough too when they were young. And their reaction to somebody like me, maybe they saw me, I don't know what they saw. But they were tough guys, you know. You played with them. Some of them, they didn't say good shot. They weren't just as worldly. And it was normally the ones that didn't play outside of America that were like that. Thankfully, now most of the top players go and play overseas, and certainly play the British Open and so on. But there was an element there, but there was a lot of good guys too. I mean, and certainly the top players were all great. I mean, the top players were great guys, and you know, you have to look for the good in people, not the bad at the end of the day. But you know, that's all a part of life, and that's part of growing up, and that's part of development, isn't it? I mean, you know, you don't mix with people who you don't care for. You mix with people who you like, and so it goes. That's how we try and live our lives, I think, or we should do.
We've got a 13-year-old boy by the name of Chris from North Carolina who wants to ask you a Ryder Cup question. How are you, Chris?
Hi, I'm fine, Peter. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for calling in tonight.
No problem. I was wondering, Mr. Jacklin, what your thought was on the players getting cut some of the Ryder Cup money. I personally feel that it should be more for pride, and that the players shouldn't worry about money because you're representing your country. And I feel like if I was in their shoes, that I would just feel honored to represent my country. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that. Thanks.
Well, Chris, I think like you do, for the most part, that you know, when I represented my country and I saw my flag being raised, and you know, there was something very, very meaningful in that. But of course, I came from an era that was probably more appreciative of some more things. You know, it wasn't all just as easy as it seems to be today. There wasn't the money around, there wasn't, and it's difficult. And I know the world turns, and the one thing for sure, nothing's ever going to always stay the same. I think the big problem here behind all this is the fact that the players see the PGA of America, the British PGA, making all this money. Every 4 years it comes to America, every 4 years it goes to Europe. And the players have no say in, you know, they think, well, where's the money all going, you know? I mean, and if there's all this money around, well, why shouldn't we get some of it? And I can actually see that point of view. The British PGA, for example, I mean, as far as I'm aware, there might be a European PGA, but it's the British PGA that the Ryder Cup was deeded to. And there's only going to be, what, three British players on the team this year, I think. There's Darren Clark, and there's Westwood, and
Colin Montgomery.
Colin, there's four of them. British players, maybe. And the rest, the majority of the teams, I think, European, I think. And then one wonders, you know, is it right? And I think the players wonder that too, so they start. But it's very difficult, and I really don't want to get in, but I feel very much, certainly from the European end, and I can only speak for myself, when we took this thing, when I took the captain's job in '83, the European Tour wasn't very strong in terms of what prize money they were playing for. By the time we got to the end of the '80s, I think I'm right in saying that it was 10 times what it was in '82. It was 10 times in '89. So I saw that was all of the benefit the players ever were going to need, because this was their opportunity to put back something, playing, representing their country. If we could beat America, then all the European, it would be an easier job for the commissioner to go out and bring more tournaments on board for Europe, and that's what happened. And it seems now to have stabilized, the purses seem to have stabilized, and maybe with all the money around, I don't know if the players maybe should get a little more. I don't know. I mean, or maybe certainly charity should win. I think if that's a genuine call from the players that charity should benefit from this great event and the success of this great event, I think that would be a fine thing. But you know, I can't subscribe to the argument, well, some players could give it to charity and some can keep it if they like. You know, I mean, you're really putting the next guy on the spot. I mean, it's okay if you've got 50 million in the bank, but not everybody's got 50 million in the bank. So they'll sort it out, hopefully, for the betterment of the game, and we'll get this all put behind us. I hope, and it's my understanding that they're going to tackle it and come out with a solution by the end of the year. I just hope whatever they decide reflects well on well, the Ryder Cup itself and golf in general.
We'll be right back with Tony Jacklin. Stay with us.